Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist, often misunderstood as merely a dream interpreter or spiritual philosopher, foresaw something profound nearly a century ago, that the journey to wholeness would one day replace the climb to power. He believed that what we suppress does not disappear, it waits. And often it is the unlived life within us, the shadow that contains our greatest genius. In a time where the collective psyche is buckling under the weight of burnout, disconnection, and disillusionment, Jung's message is more vital than ever. Not as theory, as survival. So, here's a radical question for you. What if making money in today's world isn't about working harder, but becoming more whole? What if the parts of you that were once dismissed, your quirks, your mess, your passions, your wounds, are actually your most powerful assets? Modern society has erected altars to productivity, profit, and performance. We are told that success is external, found in titles, paychecks, and applause. But beneath this glittering surface lies a quiet discontent, a whispering void that many cannot name. People are busy, yes, but deeply unfulfilled. And if you listen carefully, you'll notice the murmurs growing louder. There must be more to life than this. Carl Jung once said, "You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become." But how can one become anything authentic if they have not first met themselves? That is the tragedy of our times. We've become strangers to our own souls, performers in roles we never chose, caught in scripts written by society, family trauma, or fear. The result? A psychic split. We become fragments of who we could be, pleasers, hustlers, achievers, while the deeper self waits hidden in the shadows. This is where the concept of individuation enters, one of Jung's most profound gifts to modern psychology. Individuation is the sacred process of becoming whole, not perfect, but whole. It is the slow, courageous integration of your conscious personality with the parts of you you've long abandoned, your creative instincts, your forbidden desires, your repressed anger, your childish dreams, your strange impulses, and yes, your economic potential. You see, income today is no longer produced by conformity, it is magnetized by coherence. When who you are on the inside aligns with what you do on the outside, you become powerful, not by force, but by frequency. That is the shift we are witnessing now. The outer world is merely catching up with an inner reality Jung described nearly a century ago. When the unconscious becomes conscious, we become free. So why is this relevant to making money? Because in the emerging economy, resonance is more valuable than credentials. Presence matters more than packaging. We are entering a psychological marketplace where truth, not technique, determines influence. And the first product you must sell is your own self-awareness. Let me be clear, this is not about exploiting your pain for profit or bypassing responsibility through spirituality. It is about reclaiming the inner gold you buried long ago, often in childhood, often in silence. Jung believed that within every person lies a shadow, a reservoir of unlived life. And within that shadow is your creativity, your instinct, your uniqueness, your edge. Not the version of you trained to fit in, but the version that could never fully obey the script. This is the paradox. What you've hidden is what people are starving for. In a world of curated perfection, raw truth is irresistible. That's why storytelling rooted in personal transformation is thriving. That's why coaches without degrees are changing lives. That's why digital artists, tarot readers, and trauma-informed guides are earning not because they followed the system, but because they outgrew it. And here's the deeper truth Jung would want you to hear: you don't need to build your value. You need to remember it. The architecture of your soul was not made for mindless repetition. It was built for meaning. The question is no longer, how can I make more money? But what parts of myself am I still denying, and what would happen if I gave them a voice? Let me give you a real-world illustration. A man spends a decade climbing the corporate ladder. By all appearances, he is successful. But something gnaws at him, an old desire to write poetry, something he buried in adolescence because it was impractical. One day, he begins to share short, spiritual poems online, not for money, but for expression. Within a year, he has a devoted audience, a book deal, and a speaking tour. Not because he followed a trend, but because he followed his truth. This is the essence of the inner economy. Your wholeness is your wealth. The parts of you that don't fit the old economy, the weird parts, the wounded parts, the wonderful parts, are your economy now. So if you're feeling like success has become synonymous with soul loss, know this: your symptoms are signals. That discomfort you feel is the psyche knocking. It's your shadow asking to be seen. It's your truth begging to be expressed. And behind that expression may lie the very abundance you've been chasing. We are not here to perform someone else's idea of success. We are here to embody our own. And in this new paradigm, the more of you that you bring into the world, the more the world reflects that, back in opportunity, connection, and yes, income. But that only happens when you stop running from yourself and start reclaiming yourself. So stay with me. In the next section, we'll explore 5 spiritually aligned ways people are turning their inner lives into outer livelihoods without losing their soul in the process. In every person, there lies an unlived life, a voice ignored, a gift buried, a truth exiled. Carl Jung called this the shadow, not because it is evil, but because it exists outside the light of conscious awareness. And in this shadow are the very parts of ourselves most capable of transformation. Ironically, they are also the most financially potent. We've been taught to believe that business is about strategy, branding, and performance. But there is a deeper current that flows beneath it all: psychic energy. Wherever energy has been repressed, denied, or forgotten, wealth has also been blocked. The shadow, then, is not your enemy. It is your untapped currency. Let us make this real. Imagine you were once shamed for being emotional. Perhaps you were told, "You're too sensitive. Toughen up." So you learned to suppress your empathy, your intuition, your emotional range. Over time, that repression becomes a split. You become logical, disciplined, perhaps even successful. But somewhere along the way, joy disappears. Passion fades. Creativity dries up. You earn money, but feel empty. Now imagine you begin to re-engage with your sensitivity, not as a flaw, but as a strength. You notice patterns others don't. You hold space in conversations with grace. You become attuned to energies, to nuance, to emotional truth. That sensitivity, once a source of shame, now becomes a skill, a resource, a business. You launch a coaching practice, a writing platform, a healing container. Suddenly, what once disqualified you now distinguishes you. That's the shadow in action, not as darkness, but as unclaimed light. Jung taught that the shadow contains qualities that we possess but reject. This rejection creates an internal division that weakens us. But when we begin to reintegrate these qualities, we access what he called psychic wholeness, a state of personal coherence that radiates clarity, purpose, and magnetism. In today's world, That coherence is what attracts opportunity. People trust wholeness. They feel it. They pay for it. Now let's expand this idea into what we might call shadow-based storytelling, the practice of transforming your personal wounds into public wisdom. Our society is starved for authenticity. People are done with plastic perfection and polished personas. They want something real. And nothing is more real than a story told from the scar, not the wound. This is not about trauma dumping. This is about alchemy, taking the raw material of your past and refining it into meaning, message, and medicine. When you speak from integration, not to seek pity, but to reveal truth, you generate resonance. And resonance is the new algorithm. Whether you're writing, speaking, painting, or podcasting, your story becomes a bridge. It tells others you are not alone, and that connection, that sacred recognition, creates value. Emotional value, psychological value, economic value. Let me be clear, monetizing your story doesn't diminish it. It dignifies it. It says, my healing has worth, and my path can illuminate the path of another. This is already happening. Former addicts are now running thriving sobriety platforms. Burned-out professionals are creating mental health podcasts. People who survived loss, illness, rejection, they are publishing books, hosting retreats, launching communities. Not because they went to business school, but because they went to hell and came back with a light. That's shadow integration. That's real power. But here's where most people falter. The shadow doesn't just hide our creativity. It hides our fear, our shame, our inner saboteurs. And when we get close to reclaiming our truth, those voices awaken. Who do you think you are? No one will care. You're not ready. That is the ego's last defense. Jung wrote, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. If your life keeps circling the same economic struggle, the same career dissatisfaction, the same creative paralysis, ask yourself, what part of me have I disowned? What unlived life is trying to get my attention? Because until you answer that question, no funnel marketing hack or monetization tool will save you. But when you do, when you truly integrate what you've rejected, you don't just create income. You create impact. You create coherence. And people feel that. They feel when you speak from truth. They feel when your work carries soul. And in a world increasingly saturated with artificial intelligence and algorithmic noise, soul stands out. So here's your invitation. Stop performing. Start revealing. Start working with your shadow, not against it. Let it teach you. Let it fuel your creativity. Let it guide your next move. The gold is in the dark. In the next segment, we'll go deeper into the 5 most common abundance-blocking archetypes, those inner patterns that keep your gifts from becoming income. Because before you build an external business, you must clear the internal resistance. Let's keep going. Your shadow is waiting and so is your wealth. Carl Jung taught that within each of us are ancient patterns, archetypes, that shape how we experience the world. These archetypes aren't just myths or metaphors. They are living energies embedded in our psyche. They influence how we think, feel, and act, often unconsciously. And when it comes to abundance, whether financial, creative, or relational, these inner figures can either empower us or sabotage us. If you've ever found yourself stuck undercharging, overgiving, hiding, or endlessly preparing but never launching, chances are an archetype is at play. Not to punish you, but to protect you. These patterns were formed in early life, often as adaptations to survive emotionally. But what once kept you safe is now keeping you small. Let's meet 5 of the most common abundance-blocking archetypes and begin the work of integrating them so they can evolve. 1. The good student. This archetype is the perfectionist. It says, do it the right way. Get the approval first. Earn your place. It's the voice that insists you need another certification, another course, another degree before you're allowed to charge money or share your wisdom. It hides behind research. It postpones action. And worst of all, it demands permission. But abundance does not come through permission. It comes through participation. To transcend this archetype, you must shift from seeking mastery to embodying process. You don't need to be perfect to offer value. In fact, your vulnerability and real-time evolution are what create connection. The more human you are, the more trustworthy you become. This is not fraud. This is leadership in its most honest form. 2. The silent healer. You love to help. You feel deeply. You've walked through your own darkness and want to be of service, but when it comes time to receive in return, especially money, you freeze. You wonder, how can I charge for something sacred? Isn't that selfish? This archetype romanticizes sacrifice. It spiritualizes poverty. It equates charging with corruption. But Jung would remind us the sacred must also be sustainable. You cannot pour from an empty cup. And healing, whether emotional labor, intuitive guidance, or energetic presence, requires immense life force. That energy has value. And receiving compensation is not greed. It is reciprocity. You honor your gifts not by giving them away endlessly, but by letting them circulate within a balanced exchange. The starving artist. This one whispers, if you make money from your creativity, it will no longer be pure. It clings to the myth that true art must suffer and that commercial success equals spiritual compromise. This archetype is loyal to struggle. It thrives on the drama of being misunderstood and broke. But this is not authenticity. It is fear dressed in aesthetic rebellion. To move beyond this, you must reclaim your inner child, the part of you who created freely, joyfully, without apology. Abundance does not corrupt creativity. It amplifies it. It gives your art wings. It lets your expression travel. It supports the muse. You are allowed to be paid and profound. You are allowed to thrive without betrayal. 4. The invisible one. You're not lazy. You're not uninspired. You're just hiding. This archetype learned early that being seen was unsafe. Perhaps you were mocked, misunderstood, or punished for your truth. So now, as an adult, you protect yourself by staying quiet. You dim your light before anyone else can. But this protection has become a prison. Jung wrote that the path to wholeness requires the courage to confront our fears. The invisible one must step into the role of the sacred witness, one who can hold space and be held, one who can be visible without losing tenderness. You don't need to shout. You don't need to convince. You only need to stand in your story, in your energy, in your presence. Visibility is not vanity. It is responsibility. 5. The overgiver. This archetype tries to earn love through effort. It says, I must over-deliver to deserve. It attaches worth to performance, not presence. It sends follow-ups at midnight, adds bonuses no one asked for, and still feels like it's not enough. This is burnout masquerading as generosity, and it's not sustainable. To heal this, you must reclaim your right to receive, not just money, but rest, pleasure, silence, support. You are allowed to give from overflow, not depletion. Abundance flows through balance. The breath in, the breath out, the give, the receive. Now take a moment. Which of these archetypes lives in you? Perhaps more than one. None of them are bad. They are adaptations formed to help you survive. But you are not here to merely survive. You are here to create, to contribute, to embody your whole self. And that means integrating these patterns, not banishing them, but evolving them. That is what Jung meant by making the unconscious conscious. When we see our inner saboteurs clearly, we can alchemize them into inner allies. The good student becomes the curious creator. The silent healer becomes the empowered guide. The starving artist becomes the resourced visionary. So before you write your next offer launch, your next project, or step into your next level, pause. Meet the archetypes within. Ask them what they need. Offer them compassion. And then move forward, not from lack, but from wholeness. In the next segment, we'll explore how to practically build a soul-aligned business model rooted in your unique frequency. Because once the inner resistance dissolves, the outer structure begins to take shape with grace. Carl Jung often spoke of the tension of opposites, the inner conflict between what the soul desires and what the world demands. This tension, if faced consciously, can lead not to breakdown, but to breakthrough. In the realm of work and money, most people live inside this tension without resolution. They build lives from obligation, not from essence. They chase productivity, but feel empty. They follow formulas, but remain unfulfilled. But what if your business, your source of income, could be an expression of your inner wholeness? What if the structure of your work was not a cage, but a mirror? In Jungian terms, we are no longer building businesses from the ego alone, but from the self, the integrated core that contains both the rational mind and the intuitive soul. A soul-aligned business is not created through marketing tactics or external templates. It emerges from inner alignment. It becomes when we become. So how do we do that? 1. Anchor into the core. Vibe essence before strategy. Begin not with a business plan, but with a question. What is the energetic signature of my presence? Every individual carries a distinct frequency. Some ground others with stability. Some ignite change. Some awaken reflection. Your true vocation begins when your offerings match your inner essence. Not your resume, not your job title, your essence. Jung would call this alignment with the self a state where the ego is no longer chasing status, but serving something deeper. When your actions arise from your essential nature, they carry clarity. And in the marketplace, clarity attracts. Ask yourself, if my soul had a business model, what would it look like? Don't force an answer. Let it emerge. Journal, reflect. Pay attention to what energizes you and what depletes you. Your core vibe is the foundation. Strategy is merely the scaffolding. 2. Design a resonant, offering ecosystem. The psyche is not linear. It's cyclical, fluid, alive. Your business should be too. Think of your offerings as an ecosystem designed to meet people at different stages of resonance. Some will find you through a 30-second insight. Others will seek you out after months of observing your work. Both need a path. Here's a psychologically sound structure. Free resonance content. Short reflections. Videos. Writings. Medicine. For the collective. Low entry offer. A workshop. A guide. A creative product accessible and deepening. core signature offer, a mentorship, a course, a service, born from your lived experience. Community container, a space for sustained transformation circles, memberships, sacred cohorts. This isn't a sales funnel. It's a soul funnel designed not to convert, but to connect. And just like the psyche, it evolves as you evolve. C. Shape time. Around joy and flow, Jung believed that the self communicates not through logic alone, but through feeling, symbols, and rhythm. That includes your relationship to time. We are conditioned to sacrifice life for labor trading our most vital hours for someone else's calendar. But what if your schedule could serve your spirit? Ask yourself, when am I most alive? How much energy can I give without depleting myself? What kind of clients or collaborators make me feel more me? Your business must not just support your livelihood, it must support your life. Time is not just a container, it's a canvas. Don't fill it. Design it. Let joy and aliveness be the architects of your week. 4. Make creativity a daily ritual. Creativity for Jung was sacred. He saw it as the language of the unconscious, where dreams, images, and archetypes rise to meet us. In business, creativity is often treated as decoration, but in a soul-aligned model, it is central. It is how you stay connected to the depths beneath your ideas. It is how you stay clear enough to serve. So make space, not just for monetized creativity, but for expression without outcome. Write, dance, paint, walk in silence. Let your imagination stretch. Let the shadow speak. Let the child inside you play. This is not a luxury. It's maintenance for the soul. 5. Let your evolution lead your expansion. Most people build a business, then freeze it in place. But the psyche is ever changing. Who you were last year is not who you are now. So let your work reflect that. Your niche may change. Your prices may rise. Your offers may dissolve and reform. That is not inconsistency. That is integrity. Jung reminded us that growth requires death of personas, of projections, of outdated roles. As you evolve, your external world must shed its skin too. Otherwise, you'll wake up one day inside a business that no longer fits your soul. Let go of what no longer aligns. Trust that what is true will rise. In closing, when you build from the inside out, your business becomes a living thing, an extension of your deepest self. You no longer need to chase abundance. You become abundance. The more integrated you are, the more magnetic your work becomes. And that Jung would say is individuation in action, not just in the inner world, but in the marketplace. In the next and final part, we'll bring all of this together. We'll explore how to fully embody your inner truth and create a life where your gifts are the product, your healing is the proof, and prosperity is the echo of your authenticity. Carl Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And perhaps nowhere is this truth more urgent than in today's world, a world where identity is curated, performance is rewarded, and the soul is often left behind. But if you've made it to this point in the video, then something in you has already begun to awaken. You've started to remember what society taught you to forget, that your story, your wounds, your instincts, your gifts are not detours from your path to success. They are the path. The old model said, conform, produce, prove. The new model says, integrate, express, align. In Jungian language, this is the journey from ego to self. And it's not just a spiritual awakening, it's a practical one. Because when you become internally coherent, the external world begins to mirror that harmony. Money flows not from hustle, but from truth. Opportunities arise not from strategy alone, but from resonance. And here is the most liberating truth of all. You do not need to become someone else to thrive. You simply need to become more yourself. The parts of you that once felt too strange, too sensitive, too wild, or too broken, those are not liabilities. They are your legacy. What was once hidden in shadow becomes your signature. What you once feared becomes your fuel. So, as you leave this space today, don't look for more tactics. Look inward. Ask, what parts of myself have I been exiling in the name of success? What would it look like to welcome them home? This isn't about overnight wealth. It's about sustainable sovereignty. It's about building a life where your gifts are the product, your healing is the proof, and your energy becomes the magnet for aligned abundance. And if something stirred in you during this journey, if you felt seen, remembered, or inspired, then know that you're not alone. You are part of a growing collective of souls who are choosing depth over display, resonance over reach, and meaning over metrics. Let's continue the journey together. If this message resonated with you, subscribe to my channel so you never miss a new episode exploring the inner worlds that shape our outer realities. Hit the bell icon to receive updates and stay connected to this community of seekers, healers, and creators. And most importantly, I want to hear from you. Which archetype resonated most with you? What part of your shadow are you ready to integrate? Leave a comment below. Your words might inspire someone else to begin their own journey toward wholeness. This is not just content. This is consciousness in motion. So go forward not to prove, but to embody. Not to chase, but to attract. Not to perform, but to remember. The future is not out there. It's in you. Now bring it to life. Subscribe. Comment. Awaken. You are not late. You are right on time.